Hello, transitions. We are on to lesson 7. Lesson 7 is combining two of the exponent rules, multiplication rule and quotient rule. So these are going to be a little bit more steps, but that's okay. You can also do them a couple different ways, but I'll show you the way that I think is the easiest, and hopefully it catches on. Okay, so let's start with number 13. Okay, and I'm only going to focus on one part of the equation, or I should say expression at a time. So right now I'm only going to focus on the numerator. Okay, I'm only looking at these things right now. Okay, and I'm going to treat that as that's the only problem. Okay, so we can see it's multiplying, so we know we need to multiply the big numbers. Okay, so I'm going 3 times 2, which gives me 6. Okay, and then we're going to simplify my a variable. So I've got a to the first power and a to the thirds. That would give me a to the fourth. And then we'll do that same thing with b, okay, but we see that b, we have a b to the first power and b to the negative 3. So 1 plus negative 3 gets me negative 2. So I've got b to the negative 2. Okay, so now I can see that my numerator, my top of this expression, is completely simplified. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring in my denominator. Okay, notice there's nothing to simplify in my denominator. So I'm just going to go 2a cubed. Okay, so now we can go ahead and simplify using our quotient rule. Okay, so remember, take the big numbers, treat them as normal. So in this one I've got 6 divided by 2. Well, that gives me 3. Okay, then I can go ahead and look at my a's. I've got a to the fourth on top, a to the third on the bottom. And remember, when you are dividing, you subtract. So 4 minus 3 gets me a to the first power, or just a. And then you can see the last thing we have to simplify is this b term, because notice it's b to the negative 2. And we do not want negative exponents in our answer. So because that b to the negative 2 is on the numerator, we must move it down to the denominator to make it positive for our last step. So this will be b squared. So again, my final answer here, I'd have 3 on top with my a, and then on the bottom, b squared. So try and focus on one part of the expression at a time. So start with the top, then simplify the bottom, then see if you can divide. Okay, so let's do that same thing for number 14. Okay, so number 14, again, let's start with the numerator. Okay, the numerator, can we simplify it? No, we can't, because there's only one x, there's only one y, and there's only one number. So I'm going to just write that exactly how it is. So 3x cubed, y cubed. And now let's go ahead and take a look at our denominator. Okay, so let's focus on the denominator next. Okay, so again, big numbers first. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. Okay, and then let's take a look at our first variable, which would be x. So I've got this x to the negative 1, and I've got x to the second power, or x squared. So let's add those together. So negative 1 plus 2 gets me x to the first power. And then we'll do that same thing with y. Okay, so I've got y to the third power and y to the negative 1. Again, we are adding these two together. So 3 plus negative 1 gives me y squared. All right, so now I've got everything simplified, and now I can go ahead and use my quotient rule to finish this problem. Okay, so let's start with the big numbers. Okay, and in this problem, we've got 3 divided by 6. Okay, well, we know that 6 divided by 3 is 2, but if the 3 is on top, that means that would simplify to 1/2. Okay, so I've got 1/2 as my first part of this answer, and now let's go ahead and look at my x's. Okay, so for my x's, I've got x to the 3 on top, x to the first on the bottom, so 3 minus 1 gives me x squared. And remember, that always goes on the side that has the most. So because there's 3 on the top, that answer is going to stay on the top. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at our y's. So I've got y cubed on the top, y squared on the bottom. 3 minus 2 gives me y to the first power. So my final answer here is 1x squared y over 2. All right, let's keep going. Keep going. All right, so number 15. So again, we're going to split it up into the top of the equation and the bottom. So the top, can I simplify it? Nope, I cannot. So there's not any multiple exponents or anything like that, just the same. So we've got 2v to the first, u to the negative 3. But if you take a look at the bottom of this expression here, we can simplify. So let's start with 3 times 2. That gives me 6. And then let's take a look at those v's. Sorry, I couldn't see that. Here we go. So for my v's, I've got v to the first power and then v to the third power. So 1 plus 3 gets me v to the fourth power. Okay, so now I've got it set up and I can use my quotient rule to finish simplifying. So again, let's take those numbers first. 2 divided by 6 simplifies to 1/3. And then if we're looking at our v's, I've got v to the first on the top, v to the fourth on the bottom. So 1 minus 4 gives me v to the negative 3. Okay, and then we'll keep that u to the first on top. Okay, but keep in mind, I cannot have negative exponents in my answer. So because I have v to the negative 3, I need to bring that down to the bottom. Okay, so my final answer here, I'll have 1u to the first on top, and then 3v cubed on the denominator. And that's my final answer. Okay, let's keep going on to number 16. Okay, so notice in number 16, the first thing that kind of jumps out to me is this 0 exponent. Okay, so because I have this 0 exponent, I know it just gets me 1. So let's just cross it off now so we don't have to worry about it. So that's gone, that's 1. Let's see if we can simplify my numerator. Nope, it's going to stay the same. So I'm going to keep that as y cubed on the top. Now let's go ahead and simplify our denominator. So our denominator here, I've got an x squared, no other x's, so let's bring that x squared over. And then let's take a look at my y's. So my y's here, I've got a y squared and a y cubed. So 2 plus 3 gets me y to the 5th. Okay, so now I'm here and I need to use our quotient rule to finish simplifying. So we can see our x is going to stay exactly the same. It's going to stay on the bottom, just chilling because there's nothing else to combine it with. Okay, so now we're going to look at our y's. So I've got y to the third on top, y to the 5th on the bottom. So 3 minus 5 gets me y to the negative 2. Okay, but as I've said a jillion times, we do not want negative exponents in our answer. So I'm going to take that y to the negative 2 and bring that down to the denominator for my final answer. Okay, so notice there's nothing left on the numerator. So when that's the case, it's just a 1. So I've got 1 on the top, x squared, y squared on the numerator on the denominator for my final answer. Okay, two more. Let's keep going. All right, so again, let's break it up numerator and denominator. Let's start with the top. And the top you cannot simplify. Okay, the 3 and the x squared will not combine with anything. So I'm just going to write it over again. So 3x squared. Now let's take a look at our denominator. So our denominator in this problem we can simplify. But the only part we can simplify are just the numbers. So 3 times 3 gets me 9. Okay, and then I've got my x to the negative 3, but there's nothing to combine it with, so we'll keep it the same. And then y to the first power. All right, so now we can go ahead and use our quotient rule to finish this problem. So let's start with 3 divided by 9. Well, that gets us 1/3. So I've got 1 over 3. Now we can go ahead and look at our x terms. So I've got x to the second on top, and then x to the negative 3 on the bottom. So 2 minus negative 3, that means we're adding. So 2 plus 3 gets me 5. So I've got x to the 5th on top. So remember, when you're subtracting a negative, it's just like adding. And then lastly, I've got this y chilling on the bottom, and it's going to stay there. So I've got my y to the first power here. So then my last And final step, my final answer, I've got 1x to the 5th over 3y. And that's my final answer. All right, uno más, one more. Okay, so number 18 here, is, again, it's, you know, a little longer than the rest of them, but we're going to do that same process. See if you can simplify the numerator, see if you can simplify the denominator, and then divide. Okay, so if we're looking at the numerator, there's nothing to combine, there's nothing to add. So we're just going to keep it with 3x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd, or cubed, I should say. So then we can focus on our denominator, because there is a lot to combine in our denominator. So first, let's start with our number 2. Nothing else to show there, so we'll just keep the 2. And now let's take a look at our x's. So for our x's, I've got this x to the negative 2. I've got this x to the 1st power. And I've got another x to the 1st power. So we're going to add them all together. So negative 2 plus 1 gives me negative 1. Plus another 1 gets me x to the 0. But we know that x to the 0 just gives me 1. So I'm just going to cross that out. And now we can take a look at our y's. So our y's here, I've got a y to the 1st power, y to the 1st power, so 1 plus 1 gives me y squared. So I simplified the top, I've simplified the bottom. My last step to do is use our quotient rule to finish simplifying. So if we're looking at our numbers here, 3 divided by 2 doesn't simplify. So I'm going to keep 3 over 2. Okay, my x, there's nothing else to simplify with it, so keep it where it is. So I've got the x to the x cubed on top. And then lastly, I'm looking at my y's. So I've got y to the 3rd power on top, y squared on the bottom. So 3 minus 2 gives me y to the 1st power, or just y. So this is my final answer. Okay, again, guys, I know this is getting a little challenging. Try the best you can. Ask me questions, email me. I believe in you guys. See you later. Adios.